Hello, good afternoon everybody and welcome to Council Cabinet, the first one of the new year. So Happy New Year to everybody who I've not said it to yet, and I promise by the end of this week I'll stop saying it. Do we have any apologies? Everyone's here.
Councillor Prosser.
Sorry, yes, Councillor Prosser. You tell me that, Karen, just about a minute ago. And welcome, Councillor Cross, who's standing in for Councillor Prosser. Steve?
Councillor Poulter, who is not well at the moment. Thank you.
And Councillor Poulter, and I'm sure we all wish him a speedy recovery. I don't have any petitions. Item 4, identification of urgent items to which calling will not apply. So item 8, the council tax base, it has been agreed with Councillor Poulter, Chair of the Exec Scrutiny Committee, Board, should I say, because this report needs to go, well, council tax base needs to be set by the end of September, and the report will end of September, end of January even, and it will be going to full council next Wednesday on the 17th. So calling won't apply to item 8. Do we have any declarations of interest? Minutes arising from, or minutes from the last meeting, 20th of December. Could somebody propose those as a true record, please? Thank you, Councillor Dinser, and seconded by Councillor Peatfield. Matters referred, recommendations from the Exec Scrutiny Board. There are none for this meeting. So we'll move straight into key decisions. Item 8, the council tax base for 24-25, which is me. So the council has a legal requirement to calculate council tax base for each financial year and notify the council tax base both to the Police and Crime Commissioner for Derbyshire and also Derbyshire Fire and Rescue Authority. The council tax base is an estimated figure of the number of domestic properties expressed in terms of Band D equivalents in the council tax area during the financial year concerned. It's used to determine a headline charge for Band D properties in the city. Charges for other bands are then calculated from as defined fractions from the headline charge. The calculation of the council tax base for the city is a key stage in the overall budget setting process and will form the basis of the council tax charge for the council taxpayers for the following year 24-25. A proposed tax base of 71,844.12 Band D equivalents represents an increase of just over 657 Band D equivalents compared to last year, and that increase is predominantly from new dwellings within the city, and it's an estimate, as I said, to set the council tax base. The council tax base for 24-25 assumes a collection rate of 97.4%. This takes into account of the potential impact of the cost of living crisis, other national and global issues currently being faced. We believe that represents a realistic assessment of the council tax charged or being charged for 24-25 financial year. So that's what this report is for. There's no recommendations from executive scrutiny. Any comments? Councillor Hassel.
Thank you, Chair. A couple of questions, if I may, regarding collection rates. I know last week when we had a briefing as a shadow cabinet, a question was asked around comparator authorities and their collection rates and whether ours was in line or ambitious enough. I was wondering if we could have some detail on that. And I would also, if there is any detail on this current year's collection rate and whether it is currently in line to achieve its recommended rate. I mean, it'd be remiss of me not to sort of add the slight irony in that, you know, when you were sat in this chair, you were very quick to
Always very quick.
vindicate ourselves to raise the council tax to its maximum. And I'm sure it won't be lost on the public, the hypocrisy in that situation. Thank you.
Oh dear. Okay, is that it? Okay, so let me first just remind you of your commitment when it comes to council tax. You made a clear commitment that you would not raise council tax. You made a clear commitment that you would keep council tax increases to a minimum. So as far as I'm concerned, if that's a commitment, minimum council tax increase is 0. In the 5 years your group were in control, you raised council tax to the maximum amount. And in fact, just reminding you, in February this year, when the budget was set, your 3-year plan stated council tax would go up by 4.99% in March 24. That's the figure that the current budget proposes. This budget in front of you today isn't about council tax increase, Councillor Hassel. Just to remind you, this is about setting the council tax base. So you may want to save some of your flawed ammunition for a future date. The details on current predictions for council tax collection and how we compare to other authorities, I don't have that information here on me now, but we'll get that information to you. Alison, can you share that with you now?
Yeah, thank you, Chair. In terms of the council tax base, we've set ours at 97.4, which is 0.2 up from last year. It was 97.2. In terms of comparator authorities, council tax bases proposed for Leicestershire are 97.75, Nottingham City 97.5 and Coventry City 97.9. So we're not that far out from what the local authorities are setting for their council tax base for next year. In terms of collection rates, our current collection rate is at the end of December is 79.74%, which is 0.11% up from last year. Okay.
Thank you, Alison, for that. So I think that demonstrates slightly more ambitious than the previous administration and slightly more in terms of performance-wise as well from this time last year. Thank you for that, Alison. Anybody else, Cabinet? Okay, if I can then just have a show of hands for those in favour of recommendations 2.1 and 2.2 on page 1 of the report. Thank you. That's carried. Okay, moving on. I think I can hand over the next part of the meeting to Councillor Khan. The next 3 items. No, it's not. I'm ahead of myself. It's Councillor Martin first. Commission for Adult Social Care Provision within the Extra Care Housing. Councillor Martin.
Thank you. So obviously this report concerns the extra care housing in the city. It's the council that commissions the adult social care provision within those 5 extra care housing schemes there are in Derby. Extra care is designed to provide an alternative to residential adult social care as a way of preventing longer-term admission to care homes, and we also have some very fine and excellent extra care homes in the city. The idea of extra care is to allow adults to continue to be as independent as possible with on-site and responsive care provision. The schemes that we have involve individual apartments and communal facilities. There are plans to try and expand the 5 extra care schemes that we have in Derby. So with respect to the extra care provision, co-production and engagement of residents is underway and helping to shape that commissioning of the new care and how the specifying what will it entail. The total contract for the extra care provision after a reprocurement across all the 5 extra care schemes would be up for, and that would be for 4 years, would have an annual value of 2.3 million and a 4-year value of 9.4 million. And the purpose of this report is to approve a short-term extension of current contractual arrangements affecting 3 extra care schemes up to September 2024, and for the provision and for the whole provision of extra care to be reviewed, redesigned and recommissioned for all 5 schemes from September 2024.
Thank you, Councillor Martin. Any questions? Any comments? No. Councillor Hazelgrave.
Just worth noting that the social value aspect has been well thought out, and there's some good ideas in there to make sure we maximise that possibility in this process.
Thank you, Councillor Hazelgrave. Yes, very important point to pick out there. Okay, if there's no further comments, then Cabinet, again, recommendations 2.1 through to 2.4. All those in favour? Thank you. That's carried. Okay. Item 10, houses in multiple occupation, and a proposed Article 4 direction. A very important report, a key manifesto commitment from our group prior to last year's local elections. Councillor Khan.
Thank you, Chair. Before I get into the report, I would like to thank and congratulate Paul Clark, Sam Dennis, their teams, and every single officer involved in helping to compile this report that's before you now. Chair, I have, as you know, been leading on this for the last 3 years to introduce Article 4 in our city, and I was very pleased that in September 22 it was put before the council, and all councillors voted for this unanimously. The proliferation of HMOs has been of concern to residents across our city, in particular the wards of Arboretum, Normanton, Abbey, Elveston, Darley, Mackworth, just to name these few. Terrace properties suitable for small families and first-time buyers are being turned into HMOs of 5, 6, sometimes 7 or 8 occupants. The conversion of these properties into HMOs means that there are less smaller affordable properties on the market for young and first-time buyers, leading them to move from Derby city boundaries to surrounding areas. And it means that those that work in the city have to come and drive in their cars, motorbikes, etc., which is not helpful in achieving our climate goals. HMOs also bring with them, as set out in this report, all sorts of issues, including antisocial behaviour, litter, drugs and alcohol-related incidents, parking and severe pressure on services in these wards, such as doctors, dentists, opticians, as well as increasing traffic. Whilst Article 4 alone will not guarantee to stop all applications for HMOs, it will give us a certain amount of control over the numbers in areas which they will be permitted in. I believe that Article 4, along with stricter licensing and housing standard rules and enforcement, will help the residents of Derby to have better lives and see much improved accommodation, and quality rather than quantity is what we strive for. So it's taken 7 months of hard work by, as I said, Paul, Sam and their teams and other officers to bring this before you. And I can promise residents of Derby that we will work even harder to coordinate a multi-agency approach to make sure we have quality accommodation, quality landlords, and stricter enforcement to accompany Article 4. There is very little to add to this, Chair, and I am happy to put it before you, and I can honestly say that it's given me some pride in bringing it before you today. Thank you.
Anybody else like to come? We'll go over it. Councillor Cross.
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, Article 4 is very welcomed, but I'd just like to ask a question whether the 20% catch within 200 metres is sufficient when looking at other authorities. Look, for example, Birmingham. They have a radius of 100 metres with 10% catch of HMOs. So I was just wondering if the radius is too big, and how many applications could have this been prevented in the past, if any?
I don't have that information with me to say how many could have been prevented previously, but this is a start, and we will, of course, be able to monitor these, and should there be proliferation in other areas, then we can have a look at widening Article 4. But this is not to stop in totality the application for HMOs. Some of them are welcome, those that are properly run, and the accommodation is of high standard. So if there is any harm demonstrated in other areas, then it is something we will look at.
Thank you, Councillor Khan. Councillor Hassel.
Thank you, Chair. Just a quick question regarding the area covered, because the report I read had a map that wasn't entirely clear. Could we just note which wards this will be affected in? Obviously, I welcome this this move. It's nice to see that something that was initiated by the last administration is now coming to fruition. I would just like to know what safeguards are going to be in place during the lag period of initiating this if it does come to fruition. Obviously, it could trigger a high influx of people trying to initiate IMOs in that area during that lag period. So I was just wondering if there's any consideration or safeguards been made to that effect. Thank you.
Paul, do you want to come in there? Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. For Councillor Hassel's benefit, the wards that are covered, it's the southern part of Darley, the eastern part of Mackworth and New Zealand, most of Abbey, or not the piece beyond the ring road. Again, Normanton, the northern part of Normanton above the ring road, Sinfin and Osmaston, Alveston North, again north of the ring road, and the whole of Arboretum. I can let Councillor Hassel have a copy. I've got a plan here now. Let you have a copy of the plan afterwards. It's a good question about the next 12 months. The next 12 months is business as usual. Legally, we have to do that. However, we will be looking at what guidance policies come into effect to control and assess the applications after the 12-month period. Councillor Cuss mentioned the 20%. That may be one of several policies. There are other authorities which use a sandwiching policy where you don't have houses in multiple occupation either side of a normal dwelling, or you don't have more than 3 in a row. So if there are 3 already in a row, the 4th one would be rejected on planning grounds if we adopt that policy. So in the next 12 months, through Councillor Khan, we'll be looking at appropriate policies, guidance policies, and then bringing those back to Cabinet so that we can take those forward along with the confirmation of this Article 4 direction. Those policies then will ultimately end up in the local plan. It's a long process, but at least we're getting there, making huge steps. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you for that, Paul. Yeah, and it's just worth noting the area and the way we proceed with this has to be done in a manner where it can be demonstrated with evidence, and it's got to be able to stack up and be approved ultimately by the Secretary of State. If we just went for a blanket ban, that most likely, or if not definitely, would just have got rejected. But thank you for pointing that out. I mean, Councillor Hassel, you know, as Councillor Khan has already said, it was something he's been working on for about 3 years, and there was, you know, all party support at full council when a motion was brought to do this. So you could say the work was definitely initiated then, but failed to materialise into anything concrete during the financial administration. And I know Councillor Khan, working with officers, has personally made this his #1 priority over the last few months. So this is a much better position to be in for the city, and everybody who's worked to get to this point deserves the credit for that. And it will, hopefully, once implemented, help a number of neighbourhoods across the city to diffuse some of the problems that we've seen with the proliferation of HMOs in those areas. I'm just going to bring in a couple more speakers and then we'll take this to Councillor Martin.
Thank you very much. Yes, I very much welcome this report. I think it's an essential step for the city. I think that the situation we have at the moment, unfortunately, is a bit of a free-for-all for developers who are often cramming in as many housing units in each property as they can. They're often doing this in areas that are already highly densely populated and urbanised. In some areas where the property is already less expensive than other areas in the city where there is more space around each property. So I feel that it's about striking a balance. We're not against kind of smaller housing units that might be cheaper for less well-off or younger people to afford, but we have to make sure that we keep this mix of housing options for people and that all these cheaper houses are not taken up by developers who leave young people with the option of living in one room only. And with the way the economy and the housing market is going, that could be, you know, that could be for many, many years, most of their 20s into their 30s. That's what's currently happening. So, and then for the feel of the areas and for the benefit of the long-term residents in the areas who have a strong commitment to where they live, we need to ensure that development is balanced. I think this is a first step in that process. There are other things that we've all acknowledged that may need to be done to ensure that we don't set up in Derby the slums of the future. And I think Councillor Khan has done the work that we've been asking for in Darley for at least the last 2.5 years. That work to be done by planning, and Councillor Khan has overseen that work now. And so I think this is a really positive first step for everyone in the city. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Martin. Councillor Whitby.
Yeah, just really quickly, just want to say a huge thank you to Shiraz and Paul and anyone else involved in delivering this for us. It just demonstrates that even a council with very little money and little resource can still achieve something really positive for its residents. And I'm sure the people of New Zealand will be extremely pleased with this. You know, there's plenty of HMOs, there's plenty of unofficial HMOs in New Zealand. We don't really want many more. So it's a long process, I know, but it's a big step. So, yeah, thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Whitby. Okay, so with that, Cabinet, item 10, recommendations 2.1 through to 2.5, all on page 1 of the report. All those in favour? Thank you, that's carried unanimously as well. Moving on, item 11, development of the Grange Avenue School site. Councillor Khan again.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. Again, another feel-good development. This is actually a very excellent development in much sought-after area that benefits from the Cavendish, Licklover, Blaegreaves district shopping centres and other amenities that are close by. It is the best value use of council-owned asset, in this case, the land. The homes will be part of the council's affordable housing stock, will be managed by Derby Homes. These are all sort of 1, 2 and 3 bed bungalows suitable for 1 to 5 occupants with varying needs. It is adjacent to the Sunnyfields extra care facility and could provide a pathway for tenants who wish to move on from a bungalow to extra care facility. The facility also benefits from the fact that the Sunnyfields care facility is allowing us and our residents of this development to use their on-site hairdresser, restaurant and communal facilities. The bungalows are suited to wheelchair users with nearby parking, outdoor space and other communal facilities on this particular site, as well as that of Sunnyfields. They will be made available to rent through the council's choice-based letting scheme, Home Finder. Chair, there is very little more for me to say on this report. It is a very exciting, use of council land, 36, I think, bungalows in total, much needed, and in particular, much needed because of people's varying abilities and disabilities. So I put this forward to you as it is printed.
Thank you, Councillor Khan. Any other speakers on this? No? Okay, yep, absolutely welcome report. Much needed homes needed for our citizens, but also importantly the type of homes being created with the bungalows is equally as important for people to live good quality lives at home. Okay, Cabinet, those in favour please of the recommendations on item 11, 2.1 through to 2.3. Thank you, that's carried. Item 12, purchase of new build homes to provide affordable housing. Councillor Khan.
Thank you again, Chair. This is a good opportunity to acquire a block of 13 newly built properties in a single transaction and at a below market valuation. These will be again part of our affordable housing stock and be managed by Derby Homes, our arm's length management organisation, and is welcome in terms of our housing needs. The properties consist of 9 3-bed and 4 2-bed family accommodation, and there is a 10-year warranty provided by the developer. In short, Chair, they represent good value for money and gives us a chance to acquire in block rather than single acquisitions from the open market and spend money in terms of bringing them up to standard. These are of a high standard, and I believe that they will be a very welcome and very good addition to our housing stock. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Khan. Councillor Hassel.
Thank you, Chair. Yes, I mean, I think we all welcome the purchasing of further homes, as particularly for our social housing stock, and that should be welcomed. I think the only minor contentious issue here is the site of it being outside of the city, and it would be interesting to understand the rationale for that, other than them being of a good price, if that is the rationale. Clearly, the edge of the city is a less sustainable location than nearer the centre. And while I appreciate we won't be undertaking sort of council contractual services, bin emptying and such like, we should be mindful that we will not be receiving any council tax rates on these properties. I understand that the council was approached to purchase properties on the former La Gondola site recently, but has rejected that. So I'd like to understand the rationale for that refusal, in opposed to something that falls outside of the city. Because La Gondola obviously is a site that's fallen into disrepair, is in a great sustainable location, both for transport and city centre and other services. So I'd just like to understand the rationale for that refusal, please. Thank you, Chair.
Do you want to start, Councillor Conn, and then I'll add a few comments?
As Councillor Hassel knows, the La Gondola was sort of being converted into apartments and flats, varying one bedroom and etc. Parking was a severe problem there, and it was initially refused on these bases, but they came back and then won the appeal. But I don't believe that it's a better development than what we're buying, and I don't believe that the people who would have lived there would have benefited fully from the accommodation that is needed. As I said earlier on, it's quality accommodation we need, not just quantity. So there is no comparison between the La Gondola and this particular acquisition of 13 newly built properties.
I think more importantly, Councillor Ashworth, the last time I drove past the La Gondola site, it's a derelict building. They're not properties ready now to purchase and return to our housing stock. Also, I mean, look, it's no hidden fact. Derby had over 26,000 homes that our residents would rent in the social housing market. And since the introduction of the right to buy, I think for the first time we've dropped below 13,000 homes. I think it's 12,000 and something, the last figure I was given, and that's despite numerous efforts by numerous administrations over a number of years to add to the housing stock. So if we hadn't lost this number of properties to the right to buy, we should be on probably 27,000, 28,000 properties in Derby. But the right to buy has cost us dearly, and they're properties which, once they're lost out in the system, don't come back, or private landlords would benefit from those. So any efforts to increase our housing stock for our residents within the city is really important. If these are just outside the city, but it helps us, particularly with the punitive cost we're having to currently see with supporting homeless people in temporary accommodations, has got to be an absolutely good thing, a welcoming situation, not just for us as a council, but for the residents who we serve. And if at a future date, the La Gondola site or any other site, once built out, because that's really important, we can't move people into the La Gondola site at the moment, I would suggest, we'll look at those sites, and if the business case stacks up, they're affordable, we can use HRA receipts, we'll do it and we'll look at it. But until they're actually constructed and ready for people to move in, there's no point, I would suggest, in the council entertaining such a deal. Councillor Peatfield.
Thank you, Chair. You've only got to look at the front page of the Derby Telegraph today to see, why this is desperately needed. The headline today is talking about 8,000 on the waiting list, on the housing waiting list. That's a shocking figure, and it's one that we, it's like the water's coming in at the top, and it's leaking out at the bottom. We're never going to plug that hole. And so I think that this acquisition shows that we're doing what we can. We're thinking outside of our box and outside of our boundaries, and we're not afraid to think differently in order to acquire the housing that we so desperately need. The reality, in terms of the council tax, is that those houses have been built anyway. Those houses are on our borders, and they're going to use our infrastructure, whether they are in our Derby Homes portfolio or not. And the council tax for all of those properties is going to go somewhere else, not to us. So I don't think that that's a factor that plays into this at all. It's all about the housing numbers and trying to accommodate some of those families that are so desperately in need right now.
Okay, thank you again, Councillor Peatfield, for that really important points. Okay, then the recommendations are on yes, 2.1 through to 2.5. All those in favour? Thank you. That's carried also. Item 13 then, compliance with contract and financial procedure rules. A couple of items here, both of the substantive items in relation to the acceptance of Department of Levelling Up Housing and Communities Homeless Prevention Grant. The first item is for just over £1 million to be provided to the council to fully enforce the Homeless Reduction Act and contribute to the ending of rough sleeping, and the additional top-up grant, again from DLUC, for homelessness prevention, but specifically for the supporting our Ukrainian cohort in the city into sustainable accommodation, for example, through access to private rental sector, employment support, facilitating ongoing sponsorship of guests into their second year. And then the associated recommendations for that is to give delegated approval to the Chief Exec and the Section 151 officer in consultation with the Cabinet member to implement the decisions, and then to note the continuation of our arrangement with Derby Homes in line with the 2001 partnership agreement for the delivery management of our housing options and homelessness service in line with the principles set out in the report at paragraph 4.23. Anybody else got any comments on this one? No? Okay. All those in favour, please. Recommendations 2.1 to 2.4 on item 13. Thank you. That's carried also. Okay, I see Nigel's left, but item 14, Cabinet is for the exclusion of the press and public, and to consider the following resolution printed on the agenda. All those in favour? Thank you. Press have